Asked to play what you look like. And with this face, my height, I look pompous.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Grace.
How's it all going?
We're just going to have a go at Miss Brahms now.
Oh, that should get a crowd round the store.
I'm pretty sure that he was once even given the key to the...
A single scene altered everything. What was intended as harmless humor instead ignited outrage, ultimately sealing the fate of Are You Being Served? The beloved sitcom, known for its cheeky wit and innuendos, suddenly found itself at the center of controversy. But what exactly happened? Was it a misunderstanding, changing social norms, or something more? So, join us today as we dive into the controversy that ended one of Britain's most beloved sitcoms.
We're all to be replaced en masse.
Miserable old devil.
My horoscope said I was going to get a new position.
Are You Being Served? Stands as one of Britain's most iconic sitcoms, running for an impressive 13 years from 1972 to 1985. The show was set in the fictional Grace Brothers department store and revolved around the eccentric employees navigating their daily work lives with humor, innuendos, and exaggerated class distinctions. It became a cornerstone of British television, known for its sharp wit, colorful characters, and satirical take on the retail industry. However, its origins were as unconventional as its humor. The origins of Are You Being Served? Can be traced back to the creative minds of David Croft and Jeremy Lloyd, two experienced television writers who had already established themselves in the industry. David Croft had been involved in successful shows like Dad's Army, while Jeremy Lloyd had a background in both writing and performance, having worked as an actor in the United Kingdom and the United States. Lloyd's experiences working at Simpsons of Piccadilly, a real-life high-end department store in London, inspired the show's premise. Simpsons of Piccadilly, a renowned British menswear retailer, was a place of strict hierarchies and social formalities, a setting that Lloyd found both fascinating and comedic. He had worked there as a young man and observed firsthand the rigid divisions between the sales staff, the floor managers, and the upper management. The peculiar customs, exaggerated politeness, and hidden tensions between employees became the perfect ingredients for a workplace sitcom.
Simpson's famous department store in London, and I was a junior assistant, and it seemed a good basis for a television series.
Lloyd pitched the idea to David Croft, who immediately saw its potential and helped refine it into a series that would appeal to mainstream audiences. The duo developed a script and presented it to the British Broadcasting Corporation, where it was initially met with skepticism. Comedy based on retail work was not common at the time, and the show's heavy reliance on innuendo and broad humor raised concerns. However, the British Broadcasting Corporation greenlit a pilot episode as part of the anthology series Comedy Playhouse, a program that served as a testing ground for potential sitcoms.
Little book is full of talent, absolutely full. Now, who would be good for supplying a friend? I know, by Jove, I know, girl. I feel like I can find that.
The pilot aired on September 8, 1972, and despite initial mixed reviews from executives, it performed exceptionally well with audiences. The overwhelmingly positive response led the BBC to commission a full series, which debuted on March 14, 1973. The early development of the show was marked by a careful selection of actors who could bring the exaggerated yet believable characters to life. John Inman, a relatively unknown actor at the time, was cast as the flamboyant Mr. Humphreys, a role that would later define his career. Molly Sugden, who had previously worked with Croft on Hugh and I, was chosen to play the formidable Mrs. Slocombe, while Frank Thornton took on the role of the pompous Captain Peacock. The ensemble was rounded out by Wendy Richard as the cheeky Miss Brahms, Nicholas Smith as the bumbling Mr. Rumbold, and Trevor Bannister as the dashing yet opportunistic Mr. Lucas. Once production began, the show quickly developed its signature style, characterized by physical comedy, exaggerated facial expressions, and a script packed with double entendres. The humor was deeply rooted in British class dynamics, poking fun at the rigid social structures that defined workplaces of the era.
Oh, Mr. Rumbold, I hope this isn't going to take long. My pussy's been locked up for 8 hours. I'm afraid it's just not convenient.
Much of the comedy stemmed from the clash between the older, traditional employees and the younger, more progressive staff members. One of the unique aspects of Are You Being Served was its ability to make the mundane setting of a department store feel lively and entertaining. The show's writers incorporated a mix of situational comedy and recurring gags that became trademarks of the series. Mrs. Slocum's ever-changing hair colors, frequent references to her cat in ambiguous terms, Mr. Humphrey's exaggeratedly polite yet mischievous manner, and Captain Peacock's self-importance all contributed to the sitcom's distinct comedic identity. Now that its origins are known, let's explore what led to its rise to popularity.
Don't you think you should answer it?
Well, it won't be for us, will it?
Perhaps it's Aaron's ringing back.
When Are You Being Served first aired in 1972, it was not immediately seen as a guaranteed success. However, it quickly gained traction with audiences thanks to its unique blend of physical comedy, wordplay, and exaggerated yet instantly recognizable workplace dynamics. The show's portrayal of the fictional Grace Brothers department store and its quirky employees struck a chord with British viewers who found humor in the class-conscious interactions between sales staff, floor managers, and upper management. At the heart of the show's rise in popularity was its brilliantly assembled cast. Molly Sugden's portrayal of Mrs. Slocum, with her ever-changing hair colors and frequent double-meaning references to her pussy, her cat, became an audience favorite.
Well, Captain Peacock, it looks as though we're going to be able to trip the tight land festive.
John Inman, who played the flamboyant Mr. Humphreys, brought an energy that made his catchphrase, "I'm free," one of the most repeated lines in British television history. Frank Thornton's character, Captain Peacock, embodied the overly self-important floor manager, adding to the workplace tension with his pompous attitude. Wendy Richard, as the stylish yet sharp-tongued Miss Brahms, strongly contrasted Mrs. Slocum's more traditional matronly approach to sales. The chemistry between these actors played a crucial role in making the show a hit, as each character was distinctly defined yet fit seamlessly into the larger comedic structure. While many sitcoms of the era focused on domestic settings, Are You Being Served stood out by setting its comedy within the walls of a retail store.
Sir, it has been reduced from £42.
Oh, is that so? So you're saving £12, sir. I'll think about it.
The department store environment allowed for various comedic situations, from sales mishaps and managerial blunders to absurd customer interactions. The show's humor was rooted in British traditions of farce, utilizing misunderstandings, exaggerated mannerisms, and strict adherence to workplace hierarchy for comedic effect. One of the series' defining characteristics was its reliance on double entendres. Much of the humor was suggestive, but rarely outright explicit, making it risque yet suitable for mainstream audiences. Lines that could be interpreted in multiple ways allowed the show to maintain a level of playful mischief without crossing into vulgarity. Combined with the exaggerated performances, this technique helped create a distinct comedic tone that kept viewers engaged year after year. As the series gained momentum, its audience expanded beyond the United Kingdom. The show found an enthusiastic following in Australia, Canada, and even the United States, where it was syndicated on public broadcasting service stations.
Well, I hope someone turns up soon. His bubbles is all drying up.
Now remember, Mr. Mash, only one glass each.
Yeah, we don't want them losing control, do we, eh?
Despite cultural differences, international audiences appreciated its humor, transcending national boundaries by tapping into universal themes of workplace rivalry, bureaucratic absurdity, and the clash between generations. Are You Being Served reached the peak of its popularity in the late 1970s. By this time, it had established itself as a staple of British television, regularly attracting millions of viewers. The show's ability to parody both the declining state of the British retail industry and the rigid social structures within workplaces made it both timely and timeless. During this period, department stores struggled to maintain relevance amid economic shifts, and the show's depiction of outdated sales practices, reluctant adaptation to modern trends, and hierarchical workplace culture resonated deeply with audiences. Given its overwhelming success, the show expanded beyond television.
I don't think that's such a good idea after all, Mr. Mash.
Right, I think you should do that in the fitting room.
I don't think you should do it anywhere.
In 1977, a full-length feature film adaptation was released, transporting the characters to a fictional Middle Eastern country. The film's plot revolves around the staff of Grace Brothers being sent on a holiday as a reward for their service, only to find themselves entangled in a political revolution. Although it received mixed reviews from critics, it performed well at the box office, demonstrating the show's commercial viability outside of the small screen. The movie allowed for more extravagant set designs and outdoor scenes, elements that were rarely possible within the confines of a television studio. The popularity of Are You Being Served? Also led to various merchandise, including novelizations of episodes, board games, and other memorabilia that further solidified its place in pop culture. The show's success continued through the early 1980s, with its 10th and final series airing in 1985. However, the controversial moments were also there. Let's find out.
Granger, he's practically given me the sack. Now it's your turn.
He wouldn't dare.
He wants you.
Are You Being Served? Became a staple of British television, but its success was accompanied by significant controversy. The show was both celebrated and criticized for its reliance on innuendo, exaggerated character portrayals, and humor that, by modern standards, would be considered politically incorrect. Despite these criticisms, it remained on air for over a decade, largely due to its strong viewership and the BBC's recognition of its cultural impact. One of the most persistent controversies surrounding the show was its depiction of Mr. Humphreys, played by John Inman. The character was flamboyantly camp, often delivering suggestive remarks exaggeratedly and playfully. While never explicitly stated as gay, Mr. Humphreys became one of television's most recognizable representations of LGBTQ+ identity.
I was escorted home in a police car for my own safety.
Ah, what an anticlimax.
Well, not really. One of them stayed for sherry and showed me how his handcuffs worked.
At the time, homosexuality had only recently been decriminalized in the United Kingdom in 1967, and British television had few, if any, openly gay characters. Critics accused the show of reinforcing stereotypes, portraying Mr. Humphreys as a caricature rather than a realistic depiction of a gay man. Some advocacy groups felt that his exaggerated femininity contributed to harmful misconceptions. However, many viewers, including members of the LGBTQ+ community, embraced the character, seeing him as a rare instance of representation on mainstream television. John Inman himself defended the role, insisting that Mr. Humphreys was simply meant to be comedic rather than offensive. Beyond Mr. Humphreys, the show was also scrutinized for its use of sexual innuendos. The humor frequently revolved around double entendres, particularly in Mrs. Slocum's infamous references to her pussy, ostensibly her pet cat.
Well, if I'm to spend an evening in this club, there'll have to be accommodation for my pussy.
These jokes became a running gag throughout the series, delighting audiences while frustrating some critics who felt they were too crude for primetime television. The BBC occasionally received complaints about the overtly suggestive nature of the dialogue, though the writers carefully crafted the lines to maintain plausible deniability. The network allowed the show to continue largely because it avoided explicit vulgarity, relying instead on the audience's ability to infer meaning from the wordplay. Gender dynamics within Are You Being Served were another source of contention. The show often played on traditional gender roles, portraying women as either stern and matronly, like Mrs. Slocum, or young and attractive, like Miss Brahms, with their appearances frequently being the subject of jokes.
Count on it. He didn't say much when he got me in the broom cupboard at Christmas party.
Miss Brahms, played by Wendy Richard, was often objectified by male characters, particularly Mr. Lucas, whose flirtatious remarks and advances were framed as comedic rather than inappropriate. While such portrayals were common in 1970s sitcoms, they have since been reevaluated through a modern lens, with some critics arguing that the show trivialized workplace harassment. However, defenders of the series point out that Miss Brahms was never a passive character. She frequently retaliated with sharp remarks, making it clear that she was unimpressed by her male colleagues' behavior. The show's handling of race also led to occasional controversy.
Don't bandy words with him.
Why not? She's bandied everything else.
Would you like my pump up your proboscis?
While Are You Being Served was not particularly known for addressing racial themes. When it did, it sometimes relied on outdated stereotypes. One notable example occurred in an episode where the staff attempted to adapt to a more diverse customer base, leading to scenes that, while intended as satire, contained portrayals that some modern audiences would find insensitive. Despite this, the show generally avoided overt racial humor, focusing instead on class and workplace dynamics as its main sources of comedy. The BBC itself was not immune to concerns over the show's content. Over the years, the network received multiple complaints about episodes that were deemed too risque or politically incorrect. However, due to the program's overwhelming popularity, the British Broadcasting Corporation was reluctant to interfere with its creative direction. The writers, including David Croft and Jeremy Lloyd, defended their work, arguing that the humor was never meant to be malicious, but rather a reflection of the exaggerated personalities and social norms of the time. Not only that, behind-the-scenes dynamics were as interesting as the controversies itself.
Good, sir. Well, no, perhaps Mrs. Slocum would like the honour.
Oh, I'm not very good with mechanical things.
The success of Are You Being Served was not just a product of its well-crafted scripts and slapstick humor, but also of the chemistry between its cast members. However, behind the scenes, the relationships among the actors were often just as complex and dramatic as the antics that played out on screen. Despite the camaraderie visible to audiences, the highly competitive nature of the entertainment industry led to occasional tensions, power struggles, and personal hardships that shaped the lives of the cast both during and after the show's production. One of the most notable off-screen dynamics was the issue of top billing. Are You Being Served featured an ensemble cast, but not all members were given equal recognition. John Inman, whose portrayal of Mr. Humphreys became the show's breakout performance, quickly rose to prominence. His popularity among audiences led to increased attention from the media. Eventually, it secured him top billing in the credits, a shift that reportedly caused tension among some of his co-stars.
Just once more. I think we're getting somewhere. A little bit closer. Up and over, make a bow.
Molly Sugden, who played Mrs. Slocum, had been a respected television actress before the show and was initially regarded as the central female lead. However, as John Inman's popularity grew, Sugden and other cast members competed for recognition. Frank Thornton, who played the rigid and self-important Captain Peacock, was known to be more reserved about such matters. Still, Trevor Bannister, who portrayed the cheeky Mr. Lucas, was rumored to have been frustrated by the shifting attention towards Inman. Trevor Bannister's eventual departure from the show in 1979 was partially due to this imbalance. While his official reason for leaving was to pursue other acting opportunities, industry insiders have speculated that he felt increasingly sidelined as Inman became the show's focal point. Bannister went on to have a successful stage career, but his departure marked a significant shift in the show's dynamics. His absence was filled by other junior salesman characters, but none managed to capture the same energy he had brought to the role. Behind the laughter and innuendo, several cast members faced personal tragedies that shaped their lives, both during and after Are You Being Served? Wendy Richard, who played the glamorous yet sharp-tongued Miss Brahms, endured significant personal struggles while filming the show. During its run, she privately battled depression, a struggle she rarely spoke about at the time. After Are You Being Served?, Richard achieved even greater fame with her long-running role as Pauline Fowler in EastEnders, but her life was marked by health challenges. She was diagnosed with breast cancer multiple times, ultimately succumbing to the illness in 2009. Molly Sugden, despite her larger-than-life comedic persona on screen, endured personal heartbreak when her husband, fellow actor William Moore, passed away in 2000.
Come in. That'll be our medical reports.
Oh, come on, let's have a listen. We shall do no such thing, Mr. Lucas.
The loss deeply affected her, and she largely withdrew from public life afterward. She had been known for her warmth and kindness among her colleagues, but those close to her noted that she became increasingly reclusive in her later years, passing away in 2009. Nicholas Smith, who played the bumbling yet well-meaning Mr. Rumbold, remained closely associated with Are You Being Served? Long after it ended. While he continued acting in small roles, he never found another part that matched the recognition he gained from the sitcom. He was the last surviving member of the original main cast, passing away in 2015. The show's creators, David Croft and Jeremy Lloyd, played a crucial role in maintaining harmony on set. Croft, in particular, was known for his diplomatic skills in handling cast disputes and ensuring that any personal disagreements did not affect the show's production. Despite occasional ego clashes, the series managed to retain a sense of unity, largely due to the professionalism of its cast and crew.
Rehearsal day, get the lines right, get the actions right, get the effects right, get any of the props, other things right.
In later years, as nostalgia for Are You Being Served? Grew, surviving cast members often reflected on their time together with fondness, despite the occasional tensions. While some relationships had been strained at times, the legacy of their work remained intact. Reunions, interviews, and tribute specials allowed the actors to reconnect, and many spoke warmly of their experiences. But where are they now? Let's find out.
Leave them off altogether.
If I did that, me trousers would fall down.
That could be the gimmick we're looking for.
The legacy of Are You Being Served? Continues to endure, but as of 2025, most of the original cast members have passed away, leaving behind a rich history of British television comedy. Their contributions to the entertainment industry were significant, with many of them remaining in the public eye for years after the show ended. While some continued acting well into their later years, others chose a quieter life, occasionally participating in interviews and tributes to the beloved sitcom. John Inman, who became a household name for his portrayal of the flamboyant Mr. Humphreys, remained active in television and theater long after Are You Being Served? Concluded. He performed in pantomimes across the United Kingdom, a form of theater he adored, and continued making guest appearances on various British shows. However, in the early 2000s, his health declined due to hepatitis A, which led to complications. He passed away in 2007 at the age of 71 from complications related to the illness. His legacy as one of the most iconic comedic actors of his era remains strong, with his characters still fondly remembered by audiences worldwide.
My horoscope said I was going to get a new position. But I interpreted it quite differently.
Molly Sugden, known for her role as the sharp-tongued, ever-colorful Mrs. Slocombe, continued acting after Are You Being Served? Ended in 1985. She reprised her role in the spin-off Grace and Favor, 1992 to 1993, and made guest appearances in British sitcoms, including The Liverbirds and That's My Boy. As she aged, she became less active in the entertainment industry, especially after the death of her husband, fellow actor William Moore, in 2000. The loss deeply affected her, and she largely withdrew from public life. She passed away in 2009 at the age of 86. Despite her later reclusiveness, she remained one of Britain's most cherished comedic actresses, with her portrayal of Mrs. Slocombe cemented as one of television's most memorable performances.
Captain Peacock, I do not respond to any man's finger.
Frank Thornton, who played the ever-formal and self-important Captain Peacock, enjoyed one of the longest careers among the cast. After Are You Being Served?, he became a regular on Last of the Summer Wine, portraying Herbert, truly true love from 1997 until the show ended in 2010. His work in British television and theatre spanned over 6 decades, making him one of the most experienced actors of his generation. Unlike some of his co-stars, Thornton rarely engaged in behind-the-scenes drama, maintaining a reputation as a disciplined and professional performer. He passed away in 2013 at the age of 92, having spent his final years in retirement with his family. Wendy Richard, who played the glamorous yet street-smart Miss Brahms, transitioned into an even bigger television role after Are You Being Served? She became widely recognized for portraying Pauline Fowler in the British Broadcasting Corporation soap opera EastEnders, a role she played from 1985 until 2006. Her long tenure on the show made her one of the most recognizable faces on British television.
Some makeup on today, tidying myself up because I don't want to frighten anybody and I haven't worked for these people before.
However, behind the scenes, Richard battled numerous personal struggles, including health issues and turbulent relationships. She was diagnosed with breast cancer multiple times, bravely fighting the disease for several years. Sadly, she succumbed to cancer in 2009 at the age of 65. Her passing was widely mourned, and she was remembered as a television icon whose contributions to British comedy and drama were unparalleled. Nicholas Smith, fondly remembered as the bumbling yet good-natured Mr. Rumbold, continued acting sporadically after Are You Being Served? While he never found another role as iconic, he lent his voice to projects like Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and made occasional television appearances. Unlike some of his co-stars, Smith preferred a quieter life, rarely appearing in the public eye except for interviews reminiscing about his time on the beloved sitcom.
Bits from Mozart, there's things you can steal from Bach, there's even things, very few things you can get from Offenbach,
As the last surviving main cast member, his passing in 2015 at 81 marked the end of an era. Trevor Bannister, the mischievous Mr. Lucas, left the show in 1979 to focus on theater. He also secured a recurring role in Last of the Summer Wine, remaining highly active in acting until his sudden death from a heart attack in 2011 at 76. Arthur Brough, the short-tempered but lovable Mr. Granger, was one of the earliest losses. He passed away in 1978, just a year after leaving the show, and his absence was deeply felt by colleagues and fans alike.
Stephen, do sit down.
Thank you, Ernest.
Do you smoke?
Yes, indeed.
Larry Martin, the original junior salesman, Mr. Mash, continued acting in minor television roles but never regained his former prominence. He passed away in 1994 at the age of 60. As of 2025, the majority of the main cast has passed on, leaving behind a legacy of laughter and entertainment that continues to be celebrated through reruns, documentaries, and special tribute programs. The show remains a nostalgic favorite, regularly rewatched by fans and analyzed in discussions about classic British comedy.